geek protagonist. My other video, you'll see, like I showed it a little bit, but it's mostly images. That was the whole point. But you see me a little bit. But in this one, I got my patchwork Batman, got my Goku, got my Jim Lee Darkseid hat. This time I definitely know I'm in frame. So this one's just going to talk a little bit about the Scott Snyder situation. So I'm not going to go with deep detail. You could look the stuff up yourself or anything. But basically, Scott Snyder had a situation where somebody, when they were having some kind of whisper thing, he wasn't a part of this group, and people started talking trash about him. And apparently some of the people who actually work for him on the Absolute line, and they were trashing the Absolute line. Now, here's one of the problems with the comic book industry, and industries and entertainment as a whole, but comic book that I've seen. And I've talked to some people in the industry, and they kind of confirmed this. There are whisper networks. I know some people are like, no, there's not. I'm like, I've done a video on it. Other people have done videos on it. Yes, there is. If you don't toe the line the exact right way, you don't pull this line that way, you voted the wrong way, you have the wrong think, the wrong side of history. I hate that term because history is written by the winners. So whoever wins, that's the right side of history. I hate to say it that way, but that's what it is. And I like Scott Snyder's writing. I bought a few of his books. I even bought his indie book Nocturne. I actually backed it. Now, here's something here that I've seen people talk about. I've seen people show receipts. I've heard of it myself. Like I said, I've talked to some people in the industry. I'm not going to name who. They've mentioned it. One of the things about Scott Snyder, for example, he's very sensitive about his work. There are times where, I remember this Batman podcast thing, voted on one of his books, and it wasn't glowing. It wasn't a bad review, but it was a super glowing review. And apparently, he had him on a podcast, God, you got to change. It's awesome. Sometimes when people have downed on his stuff, what do they call it? It's called secret message or sent message. I forgot what it's called, but he'll message them and be like, dude, what's your problem? And he'll question and do that. He's not the only one to do that, but there's been a few that have actually done that. And it's kind of wow, what do you mean, what's the problem? Oh, Superman, Batman, by the way. His books. I haven't read a Scott Snyder thing where I was I didn't like this. At least, I haven't read everything he's ever written, but everything I've read of his so far, and some stuff I haven't got my hands on. I haven't read American Vampire. I would like to, but I just haven't. I just never got around, I just haven't gotten around to reading. I got tons. If you've seen it, I got crates full of books I still have to read, and I got ones I still got to review. So maybe a while. I think I do have American Vampire Volume 1 and 2 somewhere in here, so at some point I'll get to read it. But it's kind of wild because these people will blacklist people. Now, did some people use a grift? Yeah. Even as Skyver was one of them, he kind of mentioned how people didn't do the industry with him because who he voted for and stuff like that. So, other people, the Caleb dude that does Tyrus Big Man, I know he backed out of the industry because of the fact that he didn't like what he was seeing. He's very, he is a Republican guy, but he will call it Republicans, though. That dude, I've seen him do videos where he calls out Republicans on stuff as well. But I've talked to him a couple of times online, nothing deep. I've commented, we've had conversations back and forth. He's a very respectful guy. Like I said, Tyrus Big Man comic. His comic is Big Man Comics. Anyway, so these people already are talking trash about it, and I'm not saying Absolute Batman should not be above reproach or Absolute Universe. I like the Absolute Universe. There's some things I would add, but overall, I think the Absolute Universe is fan-freaking-tastic. However, for example, I think Martian Manhunter looks good, but that's not Martian Manhunter to me. In a sense that, I'm not saying it's not Martian Manhunter because it's an alternate universe. What I mean by that is that I always enjoyed Martian Manhunter being the Martian with the shape-shifting and stuff. And this one, what I mean by he's not Martian Manhunter, it's not the disrespect. Thinking Critical goes, that's not Superman. That's not Batman. And I'm like, yes, it is. It's an alternate universe. There's a Batman universe where Batman is called the Grim Knight and he's the Punisher. There's a Superman universe where it's Red Sun. What are we talking about here? The reason why I say Martian Manhunter is not is because he's not a Martian. And the only reason why the dude calls him Martian is because that's the thought. That's the thought he grasped to. Say, oh, you think I'm a Martian? Then I'll go with Martian. But he's actually not a Martian. So that's why I call him not Martian Manhunter. It's literally because he's not a Martian. Detective John Jones. So that one I'm actually right on in the sense that it's not Martian Manhunter because he's not a Martian. So that's why. So just in case, it's not because I think I know better. It's just that's the story. Anyway, getting off topic. So the issue is that now someone shows Scott Snyder and his sensitivity. I got a funny feeling a couple people who was talking about it, they may not be. I don't know who. Like I said, you got to look that up yourself because they did apparently reveal a list. I don't know how long they're going to be working on Absolute. And this dude can get you a job. And some of the people who was talking trash about it was trying to get a job in the Absolute universe. How you... And I don't know what it is about comic book people that write comics. They don't... It's like they never had a real job. You don't trash the person, the job you're trying to get to on or something like that, and you're trying to get a job from them. You just don't. I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, this apartment, you know, I want to sell milk. Milk is garbage. I hate milk. I hate this company. Like, what are you doing? Now, it's got back to Scott. Now, do I think Scott's going to make a big stink about it outside? No. Inside, from how I've heard how he is, yeah. Some of you are not going to have work, and you've just burned yourself. And it doesn't make sense. Because you know what it is? The comic book industry, I've heard this before, but I actually had some professionals talk to me because I was like, hey, man, I wrote some comics. Maybe I want to get to it one day. And literally some of them will warn you if they're good folks. So I'm going to tell you this, what they told me. They said, something you got to remember. Everybody's trying to get your spot. The bigger you get, that if someone's here and you're working under them, a lot of them want to keep you here. You're only as good as they tell you to be. But if you surpass them, a lot of times it's like crabs in a barrel. They're going to try to pull you down. Especially because their mindset is, especially if you're someone like a Scott Snyder who's kind of blown up or some of these other ones, they're thinking, if I can take you down, I take your spot. And that's not how that actually works because there's a talent there. Kind of like, you know, the crazy people that do the thing where they say, oh, if I take out the boyfriend or I take out the girlfriend, that means they're going to come with me. No, that doesn't. That just means they're single and you just ruined their life. But it's interesting because these whisper networks and they did that pledge thing and all that weird stuff. People are people, and sometimes creators, especially if a guy's sitting there saying, well, I'm a feminist. A guy, when you're saying that, I'm already looking at you like, what's going on? You don't believe me? Check out Neil Gaiman. Check out a couple of them that say they're feminists and then look at what happens with them and how they treat women and stuff. It's cover. So I'm not sitting here saying that Scott Snyder is perfect. I'm going to sit here and defend him or anything like that. Like I said, I think the guy's a phenomenal writer. He just is. He's just talented. But you kind of cultivated this yourself. You know, I remember he like bent the knee to what's the name that was with IDW, Heather Antos, and I'm like, dude, you sell comics. Why are you constantly bending the knee? Honestly, I kind of look at him a little weird too because it's like he has a jelly spine sometimes. I'm like, bro, you a top writer. You need to let them know, like someone say some craziness to you. You need to do this. Who are you talking to? And I'm not even saying to be egotistical. I would be like that. Like, listen, I'm here. You're here. Know your role. Like, don't talk to me and tell me what to do. You catch up. And you would think that Marvel, DC would be above this because it's like the indie scene or whatever, but they're not. And I think that's one of the reasons why the comic book industry is suffering too. Because these people are not doing it right. They're not fighting it right. They're not handling it right. They're just not. And it just sucks. But now he knows that maybe not everybody in the industry is his friend. Maybe this will teach him a lesson that I got to look out for mine and theirs. Because these people, trust me, if you and your friend are both working in the same industry, who's your friend going to support to put food on their table? They ain't going to support you. And I think Scott's learning this the hard way. And maybe focus more on just writing your awesome books and stuff and less on this political stuff and less on blacklisting people and, oh, you don't want to talk to that person because that person's bad. They need to stop doing that. And I've seen that. I've actually seen people do receipts. I've seen people do it where they're like, hey, be careful. Be careful. You shouldn't take a picture with that person because they look bad in the industry. How about when Jim Lee made that thing about manga? How about this? How about all y'all worry about making money? Stop with your messaging and stop with saying who there to talk to, who shouldn't they talk to, who should you interview, who shouldn't you interview, and who they voted for. It doesn't matter. This is America. And I think somewhere along the lines, people forgot that. So what's happened is you should not be above reproach. You should be able to be criticized, good or bad. And Scott's not always the biggest at handling that. And I think we're going to see some shifting going on. I think it sucks that there's people who are working under him or trying to get jobs from him, but yet they're trashing him. And they're trashing Absolute Line, which is hilarious to me because I'm like, are you someone writing things that are on that level or that's just as good? Or something where you could say, well, I may not be selling 100,000 comics, but I'm selling like 50,000 or 60 off of my comic alone. Are you one of those people? Or are you not? Are you trying to get your come up? And I'm not saying you shouldn't be trying to get your come up, but maybe instead of talking trash, you should look at that. But it's really, really interesting and very telling that these people who created these whisper networks and these lists and blacklist people and stuff, they've gotten all those people pretty much out the industry. Those people have either cultivated their own audiences and they're doing their own comics or they're not. But it's really interesting. And don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here saying the Comics Gate stuff too. I mean, hell, Dan Fraga still hasn't came out with his comic, and it's been a couple years, and he's radio silent all the time. So some of these dudes do grift, or it takes them years to come out with a comic, and you're like, well, that's probably why you're out of the industry. It's not actually because you got fired for your political views. You're slow. It should not take this many years for you to come out with your comic, and you got people's hard-earned money. Sometimes you back it. Now, I'll tell you this right now. If I back somebody, I usually don't go big on their backings unless they're tried and true and they've done multiple books and I've gotten them on time or within a good time frame, or they at least tell me, hey, it's going on, it's coming here. I will decide at that point whether I'm going to back your comics again or not. And some of them, I've backed some because I try to support the indie things because they deserve love too. But if you don't come out with your comic and you're radio silent all the time, all right, you got me, but you'll never get me again. Hope you enjoyed the free money, because you will literally never get me again. Even if I get my book, I'm like, you're cooked. But this is that world we live in when it comes to comics and stuff. This is how it kind of works. Now, when it comes to Scott Snyder, that's the situation. Now, he has to look at these people, and he also needs to evaluate the company that he keeps, because he helped cultivate this culture. And it's really sad that an industry that should be nothing but love and everything. And it feels like the comic industry wants to be big, but they don't want to be big because they're worried that if they get big, too many other people will come in. How many times I've seen it where like Keanu Reeves did a Kickstarter or somebody did a Kickstarter here and they're like, how dare they? How dare Boom Studios do a Kickstarter? You guys have money. You know how much money they got, what they working with or anything. They ain't Marvel and DC. They ain't got no big corporate backing, but you'll see that. You'll see Zetascope. They do some Kickstarters, and I like Van Helsing, so I'll do that. And Robin Hood, I do, and it'll do that because maybe they don't have the money to produce, but they could do it. And you'll see people, how dare you do that? So you get all these people that try to gatekeep, and it needs to stop because it's hurting the industry. And with the gatekeeping, this is what happened. And so now, some people who might have been friends and some people who were connected to him, that person might have told him because they want to come up. They're like, hey, if I tell these people, he's gonna give me a job. Could be a reason too. Could be a true friend. Like, you're talking trash about my mentor or a guy I care about. And some of the people he mentored was in there. I don't think they were on the list of talking trash about him, but they were in there in that conversation when they realized he wasn't there. So you never know what people say behind closed doors and behind your back. But if you're cultivating a culture that is about people doing whisper networks and excluding people and saying you only have to think the way I think and the way I think only, which is a bad way to grow any industry, especially comic books, because you want people from different angles to do stuff. I love the old Green Lantern, Green Arrow comic because Green Arrow was a hardcore liberal and Hal is kind of a Republican conservative. And it was really cool. Same with Icon and Rocket. He was surprised that Icon is a conservative Republican and Rocket's a liberal Democrat. And they had conversations, and it does build a dynamic in it. That's the proper way to handle the politics, but you have, and both sides are respected. They have their good parts and their bad parts, and that's the way. But when you make one all bad and you do all this, and you in your head are like, oh, I can't stand Republican, I can't stand this, you try to do that, and you voted for this person. It's America. You can vote for whoever you want. That shouldn't matter. It's not really any of your business or concern. They may have their reasons. But they cultivated this. They knocked these people out. Well, who are they going to do now? They start eating themselves. And like I said, I can't say I feel bad for Scott Snyder because he helped cultivate this with these whisper networks and everything. But I feel bad for the situation because he's doing good work and this is what happens. And people who are trying to work from him are doing this to him. And probably people he trusted and everything. And that kind of sucks. So that's kind of just my off the dome kind of situation. Geek Protagonist, you stay safe, you stay healthy, stay real. Tell me what you think. And I'll see you.